pimp at one time, and he was a con artist at one time, and then became a pop singer.
He was like 21 when he met my mother. So yeah, I give him a little bit of degree of being young and dumb, but you still should be responsible.
If you're a big fan of Johnnie Taylor, you will never look at him the same way again after this. Why, you may ask? Well, Johnny's life, especially his personal life, was full of secrets and surprises.
He drank, he did drugs, he lived hard, he lived fast.
He had serious problems with addiction that started in the 1960s and didn't stop for many years. He also had a wild lifestyle filled with parties, women, and drama. He fathered many children, at least 10.
All of a sudden you want to come forth and say this is my father?
But only admitted to 6. Some of his kids felt forgotten. On top of that, he was arrested for possessing a revolver and spent 3 months in jail. Let's take a closer look at the real Johnnie Taylor. Johnnie Taylor was a very talented singer. Many people loved his music, and he became very famous, especially in the 1970s. But behind the fame, he had many personal problems. One of the biggest problems he faced was addiction. In the 1960s and 1970s, Johnnie started using drugs and drinking heavily. This was during a time when many entertainers were caught up in the party lifestyle. He was no different. He liked to party hard, and he didn't hold back. Even though Johnnie was successful with his music, his addiction made life very hard for him. In 1970, he was arrested in the Bahamas. He was caught with drugs, a gun, and brass knuckles. He spent 3 months in jail because of it. This was just one of the many times when his lifestyle got him into trouble. He lived fast and wild, and he didn't always think about the consequences.
He was a pimp at one time, and he was a con artist at one time, and then became a pop singer.
His addiction didn't go away. Even in the 1990s, when he was older, he still struggled. In the 1980s, Johnnie decided to talk publicly about his drug use. He wanted to help others by sharing his story. He even supported Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign, which told young people to stay away from drugs.
Say yes to your life. And when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no.
This was a brave thing to do because not many stars talked openly about these problems back then. He hoped his story would make a difference. But sadly, his children later said that he still struggled with addiction, even after speaking out. He couldn't always follow the advice he gave to others. His body had already been through a lot.
He drank, he did drugs, he lived hard, he lived fast.
His children saw how his lifestyle was affecting him. His son said that sometimes Johnnie would stay up for days without sleeping. Johnnie was also known for his love of women. He had many relationships over the years and fathered many children. He openly admitted that he had children with different women from the 1950s to the 1970s. In total, he had at least 10 children, but he only spoke publicly about 6 of them. His first child, Anthony, was born in Kansas City in 1953. Then came Floyd in 1954 in Chicago. After that, he had Johnnie Jr. and Sabrina with his first wife, Harriet. Later, he had Jonathan and Latasha with his second wife, Jerlene. These children were spread across the country, but Johnnie tried to bring them together as one big family. Still, not all the children felt close to him. Some of them felt like he wasn't there when they needed him. They felt neglected. This caused a lot of pain and confusion in their lives. They knew he loved them, but his addiction and lifestyle made it hard for him to be fully present. After his death, things became even more complicated. Some children came forward who had never been publicly recognized. This started family arguments and brought up many emotions. Some felt hurt that their father never truly claimed them while he was alive. It became a part of his legacy, something people still talk about today.
Johnnie Taylor died without a will, and as such, there was no way for him to designate who would administer his estate at his death.
In 1976, Johnnie released his biggest hit, Disco Lady.
Shake it up, shake it down, move it in, move it around. This is cool.
This song became the first single in music history to ever go platinum. It made him a huge star, and many people danced to that song during the disco era. Johnny's final song, Soul Heaven, was about dying and joining other great soul singers in the afterlife.
Her babe, soul heaven, she was there. Soul heaven.
Some people close to him said he was unsure about recording the song. His oldest son believed that his father may have felt something was going to happen. Maybe he knew his time was near. On May 31, 2000, Johnny died from a heart attack at his home in Duncanville, Texas. But there were rumors that his death was really caused by a drug overdose. Even in death, there were questions and controversy. Shortly after Johnnie Taylor died in Texas, far away in North Carolina, a woman named Fonda Bryant got a phone call that would change her life. She didn't expect it. It came out of nowhere. The man who had passed away was someone her mother once knew very well. Her mother, Peggy, hadn't seen Johnnie Taylor in over 40 years. But when she heard the news about his death, something clicked. She saw this as a moment for her daughter to step forward and claim what might belong to her. Peggy told Fonda to take action and speak up for herself. She believed Fonda had the right to be seen and heard.
All of a sudden, you want to come forth and say, this is my father?
But how did Peggy know Johnnie Taylor in the first place? Let's go back in time. Peggy was just 14 years old when she met a young Johnnie Taylor at a gospel music show in Gastonia, North Carolina. At that time, Johnnie had just joined the famous gospel group called the Soul Stirrers.
He was like 21 when he met my mother. So yeah, I give him a little bit of degree of being young and dumb.
He was young, talented, and full of charm. She thought about her own childhood, how she had to grow up without a father. She remembered how hard it had been. I started working at 14 at my junior high school and never looked back, she once said. She often thought about what her life could have been if she had his support. Maybe she could have gone to college, gotten better grades, or had more chances in life. That missing support stayed with her. 14 years after she started working, Fonda finally decided to reach out to her father, Johnnie Taylor. Her mother always knew how hard it had been for her to grow up without him. So, Peggy kept encouraging Fonda to claim her place in his legacy. At first, Fonda didn't know what to do. She was nervous and unsure. But she insisted, Fonda said later. So I said, okay, I'll see how it goes. That moment changed everything.
When we talked on the phone for the first time, I was 28 years old, and he said on the phone he knew I was his daughter. And I asked him, I said, then why didn't you come around or try to see me? And he said he knew my mom had remarried and he didn't want to interfere. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Fonda decided to be brave. She wanted to find out the truth. She reached out to a lawyer named Mark McCraw, who worked in Dallas. She told him about her story and asked him to help her. She didn't just want to be recognized. She wanted people to know the truth. She believed she was one of Johnnie Taylor's children and deserved to be treated fairly. In August 2000, lawyer Mark McCraw filed a legal paper on Fonda's behalf. It said she was asking to be named as one of Johnnie Taylor's children. She wanted a piece of his estate, just like the other children he had already claimed. Tim Langridge, a music royalty manager who used to help handle Taylor's music money, said, Fonda did good. She got them to pay attention. That was the first big step. People started to listen. Fonda also started wondering about the money. What's going on? Why aren't we getting the money? She asked. She felt something wasn't right. The news about her came out and caused a big stir in the Taylor family. Johnnie Taylor had 6 children that people already knew about. They were shocked when they found out about Fonda. Suddenly, the family found itself in the middle of a big fight. Everyone had questions. Everyone wanted answers. And Fonda? She was right in the middle of it all. Later in 2000, a court hearing was held. Fonda showed up, ready to fight for her place in the family. But then something surprising happened. She looked around the courtroom and noticed someone she didn't know. That man was sitting close by, and he didn't seem like a stranger just watching the case. Fonda soon realized she wasn't alone. Another person was fighting the same battle she was. This man's name was Tyrone T.J. Hooker. He also said he was Johnnie Taylor's child.
I knew Johnnie Taylor my whole entire life. Everyone knew that was my dad here in Kansas City.
But his story was a little different. TJ had known Johnnie Taylor. He wasn't a stranger. Johnnie had mentored him from a young age. He had even met some of Taylor's children before. One of those children, Johnnie Taylor Jr., remembered meeting TJ years ago. So, unlike Fonda, TJ already had some connection with the Taylor family. When Fonda and TJ saw each other in court, they realized they were in this together. They shared the same goal, to be seen and treated as rightful children of Johnnie Taylor. They quickly became friends and decided to stick together through the battle. But the surprises didn't stop there. Another woman named Chiffon Brown came forward. She said she too was one of Johnnie Taylor's children.
Fonda Bryant developed a relationship with both of those persons. They were all thankful to really to find a brother or sister that they never had before.
Her story was unique. Her birth certificate even had his name on it, but she never met him. She only knew of him through the album covers her mom used to show her. She grew up believing that the man in those pictures was her father, but she never heard his voice in person, never felt his hug, and never got to know him. Now the fight had 3 new players, Fonda, TJ, and Chiffon. Johnnie Taylor's 6 known children were shocked. They had accepted their own place in his life. But now, 3 new people were claiming to be family. And it wasn't just about feelings. It was also about money and legacy. These 3, Fonda, TJ, and Chiffon, decided to stay united. They were going to face this challenge together. Meanwhile, the lawyer, Mark McCraw, kept digging into the case. And guess what? He found someone else who had a big part in this story. Johnnie Taylor's second wife, Jerlene. Jerlene had married Johnnie in 1970. Together, they had 2 children, Latasha and Jonathan. Their marriage had ended badly, just a month before Johnnie Taylor died. According to their divorce papers, Jerlene was supposed to get 50% of his estate. But to get her half, the estate had to be settled first. That meant they had to figure out who all the real children were. And that meant DNA tests had to be done for Fonda, TJ, and Chiffon. Jerlene didn't want to lose control. She teamed up with one of Johnnie's oldest daughters, Sabrina, to take charge of the situation. Sabrina and some of her siblings believed that since Johnnie had never publicly said Fonda, TJ, or Chiffon were his kids, they shouldn't get anything. Later, after all the legal bills and court fees were paid, each of the 9 children, those known and those who came forward, got less than $5,000. That wasn't much, but they still got royalty checks twice a year from Johnnie Taylor's music. Sometimes those checks were as little as $1. Other times they were several $1,000s. Even though the money wasn't always a lot, it was something. Fonda said that while life could have been better, all the struggles made her stronger. It helped her become a better mother to her own son.
Unfortunately, the majority of the estate went to payment of creditors, including the IRS.
Fonda didn't stop with just the estate. She also went after the music royalties. She believed her father's music still made a lot of money. Bryant could not understand why her father's family was not getting any money from it. Since 2011, she had been asking Sony many questions. She wanted to know where the money was. She felt ignored. As years went by, she grew more frustrated and upset.
R&B and disco star Johnnie Taylor was an influential artist for decades, but his children say that they were being shorted on royalties for his music.
By 2020, Bryant no longer trusted Sony. That summer, she saw something that made her even angrier. Sony said they were giving $100 million to support social justice and anti-racism. Bryant did not believe them. She felt it was just a way for the company to look good. In August 2020, she wrote a strong letter to a Sony vice president. She said, "If you want to support justice, start by doing the right thing. Pay the black artists and their families that you've used for so long." She was not afraid to speak up.
So now his daughter is taking on a massive record label to make sure that she and the rest of his family are getting what they are owed.
She did not stop asking. She sent many emails. She waited for real answers. Then in September, someone at Sony finally gave her a reply. They said they would erase a $72,000 debt from her father's account. They also said they would give a one-time payment of $97,000 to be shared among her father's 9 children. For Bryant, this was a small win. Her hard work paid off. Some people might say this was a success story. It was not easy, though. Experts say it often takes many years and a lot of effort to get any money from record labels. Sometimes artists or their families must even go to court. But Bryant stayed strong. She kept asking until someone listened. One expert who checks record label payments said she was proud of Bryant. She said, "I'm glad she didn't give up. I'm happy Sony finally did something." But for Bryant, the fight started much earlier. Since 2011, she had been sending emails asking about her father's money. In 2014, she wrote to Sony again. She said, "It looks like the debt has been paid off. Can someone please confirm that?" A Sony worker answered her and said, "You should be getting a payment this quarter." But that was not true. She did not get any money. The debt was still there. The email exchange showed how confusing the royalty system was. Bryant thought Sony only gave her the money to look good after the killing of George Floyd in 2020. She said, "If George Floyd hadn't died, we wouldn't have gotten a dime. I made them feel guilty."
A witness standing on Chicago Avenue captures part of the scene unfolding behind the squad car. One officer looks over as 3 of his colleagues restrain Floyd, who is lying face down on the ground in handcuffs.
Sony also refused to show Bryant the records of the money her father borrowed. Bryant felt this was not fair, but some lawyers said it was normal. If the artist's estate was not clearly managed or didn't have one person in charge, the label didn't have to give out papers. That made Bryant feel even more left out. She wanted proof, but couldn't get it. 2 of Taylor's other children also said Sony never gave them any paperwork either. Johnnie had an interesting career in music. He didn't stay with just one record label. He moved from one company to another many times. These changes were not always about getting more money. Sometimes he had problems or disagreements with the people at the record company. Other times the label had money troubles, so he had to leave. The music business was not always easy, and Taylor had to keep looking for the right place to make his music. At first, Taylor started with a record label called SAR Records. This label was owned by Sam Cooke, who was also a famous singer. After that, he joined Stax Records. Stax helped him become very popular. He had many hit songs while he was with them. But then Stax had financial problems and started losing money. Because of that, Taylor had to leave and find a new label to keep making music. He later signed with Columbia Records, which was a big and well-known company. He hoped things would go smoothly there, but it didn't last long either. After some time at Columbia, Taylor moved again. This time, he signed with a smaller label called Beverly Glen. This label was based in Los Angeles, but his time there was also short. He didn't feel like it was the right place for him, so he kept searching for a better fit. Finally, in 1984, he found what he was looking for at Malaco Records, a company known for soul and blues music. He was signed after he sang at a funeral for another blues singer, Z.Z. Hill. The founders of Malaco, Tommy Couch and Wolf Stevenson, heard him sing and were very impressed. They offered him a record deal right away. Malaco Records turned out to be the best place for Taylor. He had more freedom to sing the kind of music he loved. It reminded him of the good old days at Stax during the 1960s and 1970s. At Malaco, he worked with some very talented musicians. He recorded songs with the Muscle Shoals rhythm section. He also worked closely with keyboard player Carson Whitsitt and guitar player Bernard Jenkins. These people helped him make music that touched people's hearts. Over the next 16 years, Taylor made 10 albums with Malaco. This was the longest time he ever stayed with one record label. It was a strong and stable time in his career. In 1996, Taylor had one of his biggest successes. He released an album called Good Love.
This time we got a good love.
This album became #1 on the Billboard Blues chart. It was also very popular on the R&B chart. It sold more copies than any other album Malaco had ever released. Because of this big success, Malaco decided to record one of his live concerts. In the summer of 1997, they filmed a concert at the Longhorn Ballroom in Dallas, Texas. They also recorded parts of it at a nightclub in Jackson, Mississippi. Fans loved seeing him perform live. Taylor was known for his strong and emotional voice. He had a way of singing that made people feel something deep inside. People started calling him the philosopher of soul because his songs had meaning and truth in them. He could sing many different types of music, like blues, gospel, and R&B. His last song, Soul Heaven, was about a dream he had. In that dream, he saw famous musicians from the past, like Louis Armstrong, Otis Redding, and the notorious B.I.G. The song showed how much Taylor respected these music legends and how much he loved music. Besides singing, Taylor also worked as a radio DJ in the 1980s. He worked for a radio station in Dallas called KKDA. He played old R&B and soul songs for the listeners. Many of the DJs at the station were also musicians, just like him. That made the station special, and people who loved soul and blues music enjoyed listening to it. Taylor's voice on the radio was warm and friendly, just like in his songs. People felt close to him, whether he was singing or talking. What most people don't know was that Johnnie Taylor switched to secular music to give him freedom to live. He enjoyed life without the guilt of disappointing the church. He also developed a love for money and started making extra income through illegal activities. He became a pimp, dressing in fancy clothes and driving expensive cars.
He was a pimp at one time, and he was a con artist at one time, and then became a pop singer.
His life was flashy, but everything changed when his mentor, Sam Cooke, was killed on December 11, 1964. Sam's death was a shock to Johnnie. He even thought about going back to being a preacher, but instead, he decided to keep singing. However, Sam's death caused SAR Records to shut down, leaving Johnnie without a record label. With no label, no money, and no mentor, Johnnie knew he had to find a way to survive. He researched how he could stand out in the music industry. Johnnie Taylor, to avoid confusion and to make his own name in the industry. This decision worked in his favor. Johnnie would forever be acknowledged as a powerful singer. His voice had deep emotion, and his songs touched many people. He sang soul, blues, and gospel, making him loved by many fans. His music made people feel joy, pain, and love.